There's a lot of albums, classic albums, turning 50 this year. Did Andy Scott own any of them? Well, you betcha he did. I'm John Beaudin from Rocky Street Music. With a lot of our interviews this year, especially when you talk about albums like, well, let's name one. Led Zeppelin 4 turns 50 this year. We asked Andy Scott about that album and a whole bunch more that are celebrating a big anniversary this year. I'm going to ask you if there's any of these albums that you were listening to at the time. Renaissance, Illusion. Were you a Renaissance fan?
That was Keith Relf, yeah? Yeah. Not so much.
Uriah Heep, Salisbury. Yeah. Were you listening to that at all in 71?
No, I'd have probably gone the one before that. The one after that, the one that had Gypsy on it. I've forgotten. Ever So Humble. Or
what about Alcohol?
I knew Mickey. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd have been listening to all the Jethro Tull things. As I say, the Elastic Band, having had a flute player and stuff, and seeing them at the Marquee, in the 60s, it would have still been part of my go-to. Let's have a listen to that.
What about Sticky Fingers by the Stones? Were you into the Stones?
They're the kind of band that there's better musicians out there, but there's nobody that sounds like that or grooves like that. I love Charlie Watts' comments, you see, because he turns around, he's actually a much better drummer than you would ever give him credit for. He turns around and he says, so somebody in an interview said, so what's it like, being the drummer in the Stones, do they have to, he said, listen, he said, it's the only band I've been in where I have to follow the guitar players. They set the rhythm and the timing, so I have to follow them,
Oh, what about the Fireball by Deep Purple? Did you have that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Mick and I we'd been to Hong Kong, and we'd bought these, I don't know if you've seen them, but they look like little suitcases, and you take the top off, the lid off, and it becomes two speakers.
Yes. And
you've got a record deck there. I remember us being in somewhere like Switzerland or Germany, and Fireball came out, and I bought the album, the vinyl, and that's all we played for the few gigs that we were doing out there,
Well, you're a Who fan. What about Who's Next? That turns 50 this year.
Once again, there have been some fantastic Who albums, and that's definitely one of them. The one that it came a few years later. There was they released. They didn't want to call it the best of Who, I don't think. But do you remember the album Beaty Meaty Big and Bouncy? It had all the hits on it, and a couple of oddball songs on there. That is a great album. The track listing, you could put that on and just let it go in the background, because you won't be disappointed with anything you hear on that.
Were you a Focus fan? Making Waves Focus 2?
Yeah, I didn't have their album, but I remember seeing them on there was a British TV show, and late at night, it was the only music show worth watching. It was called The Old Grey Whistle Test.
Yeah. And
they came on and did two songs. You had to play live on there.
Oh, is that right?
Had to play live. Yeah, and it was in a really small studio.
I've seen lots of clips of the show.
Because it was recorded in the News TV studio. Now, you know how big they are. They're not very big, with 2 or 3 cameras. So the band would be set up just behind the presenter here. You can see how loud the bands are sometimes because the picture's doing that, on the camera.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Frank Zappa, 200 Hotels, Mothers of Invention. There you go. You have that one?
Yeah. Live at the Fillmore was my go-to, though. Do you know, when it moved from the Mothers to Frank on his own, that's when it got better for me. And I never realized I would try and go and see him play a lot. Whenever we were on tour, if they were on tour and in Germany or somewhere, I'd get somebody with a car and we'd go and see them. Met most of the musicians who played with him, like Terry Bozzio and Adrian Belew in that era. I remember reading somewhere and not believing it. And Frank was never easy to get to chat. And this one gig, I managed to get backstage. Yeah. I was chatting to Terry Bozzio, and Frank came out of the dressing room and he chatted. And I basically, I think the moment when I turned around to him and said, you know something, I never realized that you wrote all the tadpoles and everything. And it was like, it was the cue for him to go, not another one, right, I'm off, you know. And I thought to myself, see, you never learn to shut up, dear, you know.
Were you a fan of early Genesis?
Yes. Do you know something? There was a lot of people who didn't like the Peter Gabriel era, but I did. Insane lyrics from time to time.
Yeah. Back
then, it was, how can I put it? It seemed to be more keyboard based.
Tony Banks, yeah.
Even though I can't remember how long Steve Hackett was there.
Steve Hackett was there till 1976.
Oh, well, he would have been there beyond Phil Collins was now singing.
Yeah, he was there for 2 albums, Wind and Wuthering and Trick of the Tail, when they toured with Bruford for Trick of the Tail. And he had said, and you would probably not be surprised, he says it was Peter Gabriel and Tony Banks, singer and keyboardist that were, there were 2 guys in that band that kind of ran it. Zeppelin 4 turns 50 this year.
Wow.
What did you think? What did you think? I mean, no one's wrong when it comes to music. What did you think of Zeppelin, or specifically Zeppelin 4?
Well, it's got the tracks on it, isn't it? It's the one that everybody would kind of, I mean, I still think, see, when I first joined Sweet, that we were looking for new things to try out gig-wise. Even though we were releasing these, you know, pop bubblegum records, in the set was a couple of Deep Purple songs, a couple of Black Sabbath songs. And I said, we need to do a couple of Zeppelin things, not the obvious ones, you know, do something like Communication Breakdown or Living Loving Maid or, you know, some.
Well, that concludes our series with Andy Scott. We want to thank him for spending some time with us. What a nice man. It was an honor to talk to him, an amazing guitarist, and I'm glad he's keeping the legacy of Sweet alive. Make sure you comment on our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos, and buy a Rock History Music t-shirt. Remember, it helps support our channel, and they're beautiful. Links at the very top of the description of this video. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music.